YOLO Composing Gloves here, and today we're going to be looking at Sofia Woodwinds. We will be doing a giveaway, but first I just want to start off by playing some stuff so you can get a quick feel for the library. So let's really quick dig through some of the instruments. We'll cover some of the controls, some of the things that really make this library shine, and then I'll talk about the giveaway, and then we'll go into things in detail. That's the plan. So let's go ahead and start off with the Clarinet one. Here's Clarinet one, and right now I'm going to play very legato. Oh, my keyboard's a little low. Now, the reason it popped right there is because I moved my mod wheel, which updated the position. So that's why we had that sudden jump. But I want to use the mod wheel. So we get dynamics. Now you notice I'm playing legato. If I want to play sustained notes, so like chords, I can just play chords. And I might be going, there's no key switches, so how is this possible? Well, he's written an algorithm to do this. There are pluses and minuses. For example, you can't play ruled chords. It thinks it's legato. And with this kind of stuff, it makes sense. Key switches may be coming at some point, though, which would be really cool. Otherwise, if you want to do something like that, you'd have to do it across like multiple instances currently. But that's a small thing. Panning is already done for you on the close mics, which makes sense acoustically in context. But each instrument's already sort of been placed according to how it would be placed where they sit. And so that's really cool. I'm going to double click to reset that. One of the pluses here is also the way it's been, because of how it's been scripted, the trills are shockingly clean. Like they're so good. And they're not pre-recorded because you can just play them. Listen to that. That's pretty dang freaking cool. Okay, that blew my mind. We also have flutter tongue here. Now to activate this, they're purged if they're below 0. So you got to push it a little bit above 0. So I'm at 5. And flutter tongues when you roll your tongue while you play, and you get what's called a flutter tongue. Let's turn our dynamics up a little bit more. Yeah, flutter tongue's really fun to do. If you play an instrument that can do flutter tongue, it's pretty fun. Unless you can't roll your R's, then it's a big bummer. So with the flutter tongue, again, if it's below 5, it'll purge the samples to save on CPU. That's why it's done that way. Let's go to another sound. There are, where in many places, 2 options. So for example, we have Clarinet 1, Clarinet 2. Let's really quick just A-B them. There are just 2 different clarinets. Whoops. All right, let's go for Clarinet 1 now. Let's hear that one. So you get a feel. They're very different sounds. I find that Clarinet 2 is just a little bit softer to the touch, so it works better for things where you have to be real gentle. But, you know, you get what you get out of them. So that's the clarinets. Let's check out the bass clarinet also while we're here. It's just, if you don't know what a bass clarinet is, it's just a big clarinet. It's pretty, it plays low notes. You can hear the panning already on too. It makes sense also because the bass clarinet sits next to the clarinets. It's a little closer to the center usually. There's your bass clarinet for you. Let's go through some of the bassoons. Now we have a contrabassoon. I was so excited to see this. So contrabassoons sound like foghorns when you play real low. Like we can go even like much lower. Listen to that gnarly thing. Let's check out the bassoons here. You also notice there's breath controller patches included. So if you're a breath controller user, that's great. He's also included it so that things like triple tonguing and stuff works with them. So He got some feedback and has like updated them so that they're like extra usable. When I say him too, his name's David Healy. He's the scripter, the guy behind Librewave, and I have an interview with him posted on the channel in case you're interested. Again, the immaculate trills. Those are just so dang cool. True legato sustain tonguing is also possible if you have a sustain pedal, which I do down here. And if I'm like readjusting myself to use the same pedal, it's ridiculous. But if I hold it down while playing, oh well, I gotta let go of it because it's triggering the notes that I've already held down. But here we have true legato tonguing, which is something that's also just an excellent addition that a lot of libraries do not have. So just some wonderful, nice sounds. We also have the flutes. Let's just go ahead and look at a flute and an oboe, and then I'll really quick mention the giveaway, and then we'll dive a little bit into some more details, cover the last few instruments that we have here. So here's the flutes. Let me play some higher notes here. Very nice. Very beautiful. Here's the flute too while we're at it. I think it's funny how wide the dynamics are for flutes because if you've ever, most flute players, you know, when you're playing that high, dynamics can get pretty dicey. There's not as much room as other instruments like clarinets have a much wider dynamic range. Let's check out an oboe real quick. Let it load here. That's very high. Let's go down. A little low. So there is the oboe. Let's really quick talk about the giveaway. So there will be a giveaway. I'll be giving away 5 copies of this. And it is a true high scripted library. So David Healy's an experienced contact scripter, and he was an early adopter of highs. And he went over this way, and a lot of people are starting to go this way because it's way more flexible than contact in many ways. Hopefully it'll become a major competitor and encourage contact to be a lot more innovative than they've been. Now, I don't know anyone at NI, so I can't really speak for contact, but highs is definitely a step forward in quite a few ways. Contact still has a couple of things it does a little better. If you want to know more about this, I have an interview with David on the channel where we talk about this a little bit more. And we also talk about all the instruments that he's done in it and possibly the transition that we may witness. But anyways, all you got to do to win one of the copies, we're giving away 5, is make a comment down below. Comment what you like about it. If you have a criticism about it or feedback, of course, let us know. He's very active about fixing bugs. If you go and look at the change log on his website, you will actually see all the updates. There were several. The most recent was in August. And so you can go and you can check it out on there. He's very adamant about, you know, making things work properly and fixing any things. Like if you find a weird sample somewhere, let him know. He'll take care of that. Those kinds of things. Very responsive. So just make a comment down below. What would you use this for? How would this impact you as a composer, as a producer? What interests you? I'm going to pick randomly from the comments. And this time it's not going to be the mess it was last time. I'm going to be a lot more strategic about how I do this. And I'll just contact you probably through the comments. And I'll give this about a week. And if a winner doesn't respond within 24 hours, I can pick a new winner. Okay, that's the rule. in case this goes over 24 hours, but I'll probably wait a bit longer. But please be responsive. Otherwise, I'm just going to pick another person. So anyways, that's the giveaway. That's how you enter. Let's go into some of the details here on the interface here. So let's go over to the clarinets. Let's go over some of the things we haven't looked at. Let's look at an alto flute. So here's the alto flute. When the voice count goes from negative to 0, the instrument's been loaded, just so you know. If you could always just push notes until you hear something too. So you have, let's just start off with some of the more straightforward things. So if it has a button next to it, it has an associated curve editor, which changes whatever it's linked to. So here, when I push notes, if I push hard, we get high velocities. And I can remap it by just simply clicking and adding notes, or not adding notes, adding nodes. And that causes it. So now, no matter how hard I hit, it's going to be 100%. And we get slap tone, which is another pretty cool thing. Right click to remove a value. And you get the middle stuff. So you want a particular sound out of it. Like if you want the slap tone, you could just bam, there you go, and away you're running. If you want to play a lot softer and you don't want to deal with it, you can go ahead and you can do that as well. Now, if you click over here, you see we can model it for expression, dynamics. That's what's going on here. So pretty dang cool. We already looked at flutter. Let's hear the flutter on the alto flute though. It's pretty interesting for notes that typically it's pretty hard to play flutter on low notes. So I'm super impressed that they exist down there. That's just pretty dang crazy to me. But yeah, typically it's much easier to play flutter on higher notes, especially on flutes. So anyways, there we go. That's the flutter. That's the buttons here. The dynamics morphs between the actual dynamic layers that have been sampled. Let's take the flutter off here. If we do this with expression, it's just like a volume knob. And so typically you're going to want to be touching dynamics, not the expression. We have vibrato here. Intensity is just like how much vibrato we get. And then the rate's how fast, so we can make it faster. Or slower, whatever you want. And we also have editors for this as well to make it dynamically responsive. Probably not going to dive into the editors. They're all pretty straightforward and explanatory. Now, we do have the different mic positions. Let's go ahead and check out the various mic positions. Let's start at here with the bassoons and just really quick do some demos with those guys. So here are the mic positions. We have levels for each one, panning. Now, if something's in the middle, that does not mean mono. It just means it's stereo balanced. So how it was recorded, it'll be represented that way. If it's been panned, it's being moved around according to that. So in the cases where stereo techniques were used, stereo techniques will remain. Let me show you with the decatree. So here's the decatree. Let's turn it up. And when these are off, that means they were purged. They've been unloaded to save resources. So if you're not using a particular one, you may just purge it to save yourself a little bit of CPU. Now, if I take the width and move it down to 0, we will have a mono sound. And if I take it to 200%, it'll be pushed to be even wider. So that's the width. We also have a delay. So if I take the delay way up, I hit a note and it takes a while to turn on. I don't know what you would really use these for. Maybe this could be your comment to enter. What would you use these for? Because I don't know. I guess you could create a cool kind of thing where the hall is behind the close mic to create an even bigger sense of space. That could be a cool way to do it. So there's an idea for you. You can't take that one. That's my idea. Okay, you got to come up with your own. And over here, we have a master fader, master panning, and we also have tuning, ones and semitones, hence the word coarse. Now, this updates when you play the next note, just so you're aware. And we also have fine tuning, which does update while you're playing notes. Oh, it doesn't. Nope, I lied to you. I'm sorry, okay? You have to update it afterwards. You have to use the vibrato if you want to get vibrato. So there you go. As a master, these are all pretty straightforward. If you have multiple outputs, if you're in a plugin mode and you have multiple outputs enabled in FL, you come into the wrench area, go to processing, and we've got multiple outputs here. You can actually output the different mic positions to different places. If you want to do like a really intense mix down where you treat the mic positions differently, that is an option for you. Now coming over here to legato, let's change up our patch here. We've already heard the contrabassoon, so let's go over to one that we haven't heard. Let's go over to the piccolo. We have not heard the piccolo yet. Oh my goodness, it just crashed. So if you, this is a bug report. I'm going to let him know that that happened. He'll probably see it in this video. So there's a thing for you. Now let me just show you how it loads though. It's kind of a big plus. You're going to want to hit Control S. Now, if I right click and go Sofia Woodwinds, it loads so much faster than Contact does. Oh my gosh. And if I open and close it, look at how fast that is. Let me push Contact just for comparison. I'm still waiting. Takes a while. And that's an empty Contact too. So, yeah. If you have a Contact with not very many libraries in it, it's not a big deal. But as soon as you start stacking libraries in, Contact just gets slow. So, all right. There we go. That was a bit strange there. Now, let's go back over to the piccolo. Load that up. I think it has something to do with loading because I had a weird thing before. I'm trying to figure out what the behavior is for that. But this is where when you get a copy and you let him know, he will do his best to figure out what exactly is going on here because he can't check it in every single environment. I don't know if he's checked it in FL because I know he's a Reaper user, so probably did extensive stuff in Reaper. Let's move my keyboard up. Piccolos playing low notes are just so funny to me. All right, cool. So we have offset here. This is just an offset between notes. If we take all these things down, the knobs will actually become a little more clear on what they do. So this is everything down. We have our offset control. Let's just play a little bit. So you hear how weird that kind of sounds. Transitions and controlling how the legato works. If you get weird sounds coming out, you may want to look at these faders over here. Or I guess technically they're sliders. Let's bring the offset way up. And then we'll go back down. If we have our X fade on, this will become a little more clear. So I'm going to put the X fade up, and this is the crossfade itself. So it's merging between the two samples. Let's go ahead and bring the offset really low. So this will help clean things up a bit. This is a bit too low though. And if we bring it up really high, now when we're jumping around from note to note, it's not normal to jump from like one note to another note, you know, perfectly. And that's, well, I guess with really good musicians, it actually can be a little bit normal. But we have pitch intensity, which just blurs the pitch a little bit between the two. It's a really subtle thing. It's not super noticeable. I typically have this really high. Like it's not, to me, this doesn't make as super big audible difference. I might be going, it still sounds weird. That's because of our transition gain. So if I bring the transition gain up, when we play legato, there's a middle sample. There's actually 3 samples. There's a sample transitioning to, there's a sample that's, you know, actually sustaining, and then there's a sample that's transitioning from to the next sample. And so the transition gain controls this, and this is really the key to smoothing it out. See how big a difference that made? So pretty cool. Knobs that sliders that I noticed just typically don't do a ton. At least when they do matter, you'll figure it out. But oftentimes the ones that are important are the X fade and the transition gain. I couldn't get the glide slider to make an audible difference for me. like no matter what I did. Like it just seemed to not do anything. It's supposed to mess with the glide time between, I'm not sure what glide we're talking about. If we're talking about like the glides relative to here, because it's in the legato section. But this is one that was sort of a mystery to me. So if you can come up with a scenario where this knob like makes a big difference, let me know, because I'd like to learn a little bit more too. Now we also have release tails. These are just samples that trigger or settings that affect the ends of notes. So typically release samples are samples that trigger when you let go of a note, and they would fit into here. And that's what the purge would remove. And then we also have envelope time, which affects how a note releases. Hence, it's in the release tail area. So if I have this very long, when I let go of a note, there'll be a really long release, as you can see. And this would be a way to play rolled chords, I suppose. And if I were to make this really low, it gets cut off super fast. Now, the release tails, if I use purge, it'll remove the samples that trigger when I let go of a key. So if I push this, these two faders turn off because I'm no longer able to control those things. And you can see how kind of weird it sounds, especially with the low envelope time. But a lot of times, maybe you want that tightness. Maybe it'll fit in somewhere into your track. If we unpurge, we can affect the decay and the gain of these samples. It's sort of a weird sort of pulsing thing if we take these down. So you can really tailor how the sound actually plays. It's very, very versatile. And that is Sofia Woodwinds. Let's make sure that I've covered all the patches here. Let's see. We've gone over alto, flute, piccolo. Oh, we haven't looked at the English horn. Let's check out the English horn. So click there. Yeah, let's check this out. And play lower. Oh, I lost my automation because I had to restart. So let's move this. Let's move this. There we go. I didn't hit the second note. What am I doing? Now, some of these I'm not quite nailing the performance, but you can get really nice short sounds if you write it in, if you play it just right. Now, when you're writing, you just write the note shorter until you get exactly what you want. That burp you heard right there where you heard a couple of notes come up that shouldn't, that's because I was holding the key down while I was still moving around in other keys. It's my piano playing habit, right? Because in piano, you hit the note. It's not like it's going to turn back on later. Well, it's not true for sample library. So that was a performance fault. That was not the actual engine. Let's check out some of the different mic positions. So let's just look at close. And let's also move the panning back. Let's go for the Deca. Deca is like my favorite thing on the planet. We also have Hall. Oh, let's just merge the two. Ah, we can't go that low. The high C does not exist. Now right there, we did hear a little bit of something weird. If you catch something like that and it wasn't like your audio engine doing something funny, make sure to just let him know. He's very responsive to that sort of stuff. Make sure it's reproducible though. Like what good is a weird thing if it only appears once and then disappears forever? It might have been on your system for all you know. But anyways, there you go. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.